So your book is called The War on Normal People and the Truth About America's Disappearing Jobs and Why This Universal Basic Income is Our Future. Who are normal people at this point in America?
Well, normal people, I know the title is meant to be somewhat provocative, but normal people is the average American. And so the five most common job categories in the United States are administrative and clerical, including call centers, retail, food service and food preparation, truck driving and transportation, and manufacturing. Those are the normal American jobs. Because only 33% of Americans graduate from college, the average American worker is a high school graduate, and as you can see that most of the industries I just named are actually filled by high school grads. So that's the normal American, and that's who we have to look out for, because we are decimating the opportunities that are available to Americans that don't have a certain level of skill or education.
So if normal Americans are struggling, how does that affect their decision making? So you've referenced a fascinating study in your book on scarcity and stress and its effect on IQ levels. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was fascinating too when I saw the results. So some social scientists studied the IQ levels of people who were experiencing financial stress. And they found that just not being able to pay your bill or being told about a hypothetical bill that you couldn't afford is enough to reduce IQ scores by 13 points or one standard deviation. So if you have the feeling that America is getting less reasonable and less rational, it's very likely that we are getting less reasonable and less rational, because if 78% of us are living paycheck to paycheck and we're experiencing this financial insecurity all the time, it actually is reducing our functional IQ by one standard deviation. And so just by putting this money into Americans' hands will actually improve our collective intelligence and decision-making and rationality, and likely ease much of the political polarization that we've been seeing these last number of years.
One of the other really interesting principles that you discuss in your book is the idea of rethinking our economic policy and graduating from this left-right socialism, capitalism type of thinking. And you are calling for a new way, which is human capitalism. What is human capitalism?
So we're seeing the headlines where everyone's celebrating these record high GDP levels. Meanwhile, our country's life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years due to higher rates of suicides and drug overdoses, which have both now overtaken vehicle deaths as leading causes of death for the first time in our history. So you have to ask yourself, what is our GDP measuring if our people are literally dying younger? And so instead of GDP, which is something we made up almost 100 years ago during the Great Depression, we should actually be using our health and life expectancy, our mental health and freedom from substance abuse, childhood success rates, clean air and clean water, average income and affordability, and use those as the actual measurements for our economic and social progress. And if we had those as our measurements, then we could celebrate when, for example, we brought the overdose rate down or our mental health improved, because GDP is going to go up and up with things like AI and self-driving vehicles, but more and more Americans are going to get left behind. And as someone who's run businesses, if you have the wrong measurements, you will never make progress. We need to have the right goals for our economy, and then we can make progress much more meaningfully together.
Andrew, thanks so much for your time today. This book is absolutely visionary. The title is The War on Normal People, and it's out now, available everywhere. I highly recommend it. Former Congressman Ron Paul is next when Politicking continues.